Tonight, a dog will rest its head on your lap. It will look up at you with an expression that seems almost human. You will feel understood. But the real answer to why that connection exists is far stranger than affection. You did not choose to create dogs. Nobody sat down 15,000 years ago and decided to breed a wolf into a companion. It happened by accident. It happened because of garbage. Think about that for a moment. The animal curled up on your couch right now, the one that waits by the door when you leave and greets you like you have been gone for years, exists because a handful of prehistoric humans were messy eaters. That is the entire origin story. Not a plan, not a purpose. Leftovers. Picture your ancestors camped near a river. They hunted, they ate, they left scraps behind. Bones, fat, rotting meat nobody wanted. To you, it was waste. To a hungry wolf watching from the tree line, it was the easiest meal on the continent. Most wolves stayed far away. Wolves are cautious by nature. A wolf that gets too close to a human fire usually ends up dead, speared or driven off with a burning branch. Fear kept them alive. It kept generations of wolves safely distant from anything resembling a human settlement. But not every wolf reacted to fear the same way. Some wolves had a slightly different wiring, a shorter fuse on their fear response, a little more curiosity than caution running through their nervous system. These wolves crept closer to the scrap piles at the edge of camp. They tolerated the smell of smoke. They tolerated the sound of human voices, the crackle of a fire, the shapes of people moving in torchlight. And because they tolerated it, they ate more often, with far less effort than the wolves too frightened to approach. Imagine two wolves standing at the same tree line. One turns and runs at the first human voice. The other waits, watches, and edges a few steps closer once the voices fade. Which one eats tonight? Which one eats again tomorrow? That tiny difference in temperament, multiplied across thousands of wolves and thousands of nights, is where the story of the dog actually begins. That is the entire secret. Not intelligence, not loyalty, tameness. Researcher Raymond Coppinger spent decades studying this exact mechanism, and he argued that dogs were never tamed on purpose at all. In his view, wolves domesticated themselves. The calmer wolves simply survived better around human camps, and their calmness got passed on to their pups. Generation after generation, camp after camp, the population of scrap-eating wolves grew tamer without a single human ever trying to train one. Why does that matter? Because it means the dog sitting in your living room today is the descendant of the boldest garbage eaters in prehistoric Europe and Asia. Not the strongest wolves, not the fiercest hunters, the ones who could stomach being near you. Coppinger called this self-domestication, and the phrase matters. It removes humans from the driver's seat entirely. Your ancestors were not selecting breeding pairs. They were not choosing which wolf pups to keep and which to turn away. They were simply living, eating, and discarding what they did not want, while a population of increasingly bold, increasingly relaxed wolves quietly reshaped itself around that behavior. Humans were not the architects. Humans were the accidental habitat. Here is where it gets strange. Tameness does not travel alone. When scientists select animals purely for calmness around humans, something unexpected happens to their bodies. In the 1950s, a Soviet geneticist named Dmitry Belyaev ran one of the strangest experiments in the history of biology. He wanted to know how quickly a wild animal could become domesticated and how far that transformation would go. So he took silver foxes, wild and aggressive, snapping at anyone who approached the cage, and in every generation he bred only the calmest individuals, the ones that did not flinch or snap at a human hand. Nothing else, just calmness. Within a few generations, something shifted that nobody expected. The foxes did not just become friendlier. Their bodies began to change. Their ears started to flop like a puppy's. Their tails began to curl upward instead of standing straight. Their fur changed color, patches of white appearing on chests and faces where there had been none in their wild ancestors. Some even started barking, a sound wild foxes rarely make at all. Belyaev did not breed for floppy ears. He never selected for a curled tail. He was only ever choosing the calmest fox in each litter. Yet generation after generation, the physical transformation kept unfolding on its own, as if calmness and cuteness were tangled together at the root. Nobody bred them for floppy ears. Nobody selected for curly tails or spotted coats. Those traits came along for free, hitchhiking on the genes for calmness. Scientists now believe this happens because the same developmental pathway that controls fear and stress hormones also shapes cartilage, pigment, and the timing of physical growth. Select for tameness, and you accidentally select for puppy-like features too. Does that sound familiar? It should. Every trait people find adorable in a dog, the floppy ears, the wagging tail, the rounded face, may be an accidental side effect of thousands of years of selecting for one thing only. Not cuteness, calmness. So the wolves that stuck around your ancestors' campfires were not just getting friendlier. Their bodies were quietly rewriting themselves. Softer faces, smaller teeth, brains slightly reduced in size compared to wild wolves, because a life around humans required less raw aggression and more social reading. Generation by generation, without a single deliberate decision, an animal built for survival in the wild was becoming an animal built to live beside people. Then something remarkable happened, something that separates dogs from every other domesticated animal on Earth. They got better at reading you than any other species alive, including your closest primate relatives. Researcher Brian Hare at Duke University tested this directly with a simple experiment. He placed a treat under one of two cups out of sight and pointed at the correct one. Chimpanzees, some of the smartest animals on the planet, our closest living relatives, mostly ignored the gesture entirely. They stared at the cups or at Hare's hand itself, missing the point completely. Dogs got it almost immediately, often on the very first try. A gesture as simple as a finger pointing carried meaning to them the way it does to a 2-year-old child, even to puppies raised with almost no human contact at all. That result stunned researchers. Chimpanzees can use tools. They can solve puzzles that baffle young children. Yet on this one specific task, reading a human social cue, dogs outperformed them without hesitation. Why would a wolf-turned-scrap eater develop that kind of social intelligence? Because reading human behavior was the difference between eating and starving. The wolves who could sense when a person was relaxed instead of threatening, who could anticipate a thrown bone, who could tell friendliness from danger in a human posture, survived to pass that skill to their pups. Over thousands of years, that skill sharpened into something closer to intuition. You are not imagining it when a dog seems to understand your mood. That sensitivity was earned through pure survival pressure, camp after camp, century after century. Genetic research led by scientists including Greger Larson at Oxford has traced this transformation across tens of thousands of years and multiple regions of Eurasia. By comparing ancient DNA pulled from fossil bones scattered across Europe and Asia, Larson's team showed that the split between wolf and dog happened gradually, messily, and more than once, in different populations, in different places, before those separate threads eventually converged into the animal you know today. There was no single moment of invention. There was only a long, slow accident, repeated independently by different human groups who never knew they were doing the same thing as people thousands of miles away. That detail changes how you should picture this story. It was not one campfire, one wolf, one lucky encounter. It was hundreds of campfires, across hundreds of generations, on 2 continents, each one running the same quiet experiment without a single participant knowing an experiment was underway. Think about what that means. Your ancestors were not master breeders executing a plan. They were simply leaving food behind and tolerating a few bold animals that lingered nearby. The relationship built itself, one generation of calmer wolves at a time, until calmness turned into companionship, and companionship turned into partnership. Eventually, those partnerships changed how humans lived and how humans survived. Dogs guarded camps against predators that might otherwise have crept in unnoticed while people slept. Dogs helped track prey across terrain no human nose could follow, catching a scent trail hours old. Dogs curled up beside fires at night and, in doing so, likely helped keep small children and the elderly warmer through brutal winters that could otherwise have been fatal. Some researchers argue that this early alliance gave certain human groups a genuine survival edge over neighboring groups without dogs, letting them hunt more efficiently, travel with more warning of danger, and feed more mouths through harder seasons. It is worth sitting with that thought. An animal you did not intend to create may have quietly changed the trajectory of human survival itself, simply by choosing again and again to stay close. None of it was designed. It emerged from garbage piles and fearless wolves and thousands of years of accidental selection, one trusting animal at a time. A partnership neither species signed up for, built instead out of hunger, tolerance, and time. And it is still happening now, in real time, all around you, even if you have never thought about it this way. Feral dogs in cities across the world are still being shaped by the same pressure that shaped the first wolves. The friendliest, calmest strays get fed by people. The fearful ones stay hidden and struggle. The same invisible filter that operated near a prehistoric campfire is operating today outside a restaurant, or beside a highway, or in the alley behind your home. Every time a shy stray edges a little closer to a human hand holding food, the same ancient pressure is quietly at work. Every time you glance at a nervous dog and it calms slightly because it read something safe in your body language, you are watching an instinct that took millennia to build in real time. So tonight, when a dog rests its head on your lap and looks up with an expression that seems almost human, remember what you are actually looking at. Not a pet that was designed, not a companion that was planned. You are looking at the living result of an accident, one bold, hungry wolf at a time, choosing to trust a stranger by a fire,